Well, congratulations, everyone, for Championess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Very exciting.
Well, I guess I'll toss the first question to Nikita since she's with Legendary, because I'm familiar with Legendary Comics before with the sci-fi, the horror, the fantasy, but this is like a historical fiction. How does this fit into the portfolio of Legendary?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are definitely known for our movies and TV shows like Godzilla and Pacific Rim and all those typical sci-fi fantasy projects. But this project came to me a few years ago now from Kelly and Tarun, and I heard the pitch and heard that it was about based on a true story of a female bare-knuckle boxer, and I was just like, I need this book. I need to do this book. And I just think it's such a unique story that really hasn't been told before. And it's such a character driven journey that Elizabeth Wilkinson goes on. And she's fighting for her sister and just fighting for something that she believes in. And I just love every part of it.
That is awesome. Kelly, Tarun, tell us who discovered this, this Elizabeth Wilkinson first, and how did you discover her?
It was, I'll steal credit for that. But it was from Tumblr. There was like a post going around that was just talking about like that this world existed, that there were bare knuckle boxers in the early 1700s, and Elizabeth Wilkinson was the focus of that. And we were actually working.
It just said like, dude.
Yeah, I mean, we were working on like a trilogy of YA novels at the time, and like when you're doing that, you just kind of get tired of the idea you're working on, and we were like, we really want to do this one, and but then we had to like set it aside for like a couple of years and let it.
We were very thrilled no one else brought it up before then. So
yeah.
So how did you manage to research Liz Wilkinson here? Because there was very little research to go on. I mean, I tried to research and all I could find is like a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, it's really.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, you go.
Well, I mean, you're right. There's very little known about her. We know that there was a woman named Elizabeth Wilkinson, that she was this awesome bare knuckle boxer, and that she was active during these few years. There are some newspaper articles that mention her, but we really don't have much more on that. And I don't know if you probably find that there's like one paper out there that suggests, well, then the Victorian era came along and it really wanted to repress the idea of this like female scary boxer woman, and this wasn't like a Victorian ideal. So she was probably one of like the biggest boxers of her day, male or female. So then she just kind of got buried in history. So we had a lot of freedom to kind of come up with a story around very few facts.
Wow. Amanda, how were you brought on board? And when you were pitched to draw something like this, how did you want to approach the artwork for something like this?
Yeah, well, Nikita emailed me one fateful day and I was just really thrilled. Like from the beginning, I knew very little about the story, like from what I was told. But I mean, it's what I needed to know, that I just wanted to be a part of it. And, once I became more involved and I actually got like the first like script and everything, like I knew it was going to be a challenge, because it was like, I'm not very like, before this, I wasn't very like well-versed in like drawing very dynamic, like fighting poses, like all of that. But like, I did have an interest in what, the way that the story was going to be told and like the themes and everything. And like, for me, it was really like a huge opportunity. And yeah, it was a lot of research, a lot of like working with Tarun and Kelly and Nikita. So like, it was really like a team effort, because yeah, like I needed to have a lot of like information about the time that I didn't have, right? So they helped me a lot with references, and you know, and like I already knew from the beginning that I really wanted this, and I think we all wanted it to be very character driven. It was a very character driven story, so that was like also what attracted me to the story in the first place. So yeah, like I think like having the characters down from the get-go was also like really important, and I did get to know them as we went, but yeah, hopefully the art will speak for that.
I do have to admire the artwork, and I do have to admire the story, because all of you took some severe liberties to change quite a few things. Let's first talk about basically making Liz into a half Indian character. Whose idea was that, and what was the purpose of that?
That was also, I think that was kind of mine. We had that idea back before, like as we were developing our pitch for Nikita, and part of it was like while we were doing research for the Victorian era and the Georgian era, we just saw how not white it was, contrary to like what we've been led to believe from like most of the media that we see from that era. And so since we had little information about Elizabeth, we were like trying to figure out why she would have boxed, and like figuring out like why she would have boxed. Just like she boxes for money, which puts her kind of in like, she's like the immigrants in that era would have been doing that. Like historically, like the Irish and the Jewish and the Black community were like a big part of like the boxing community at that time. And part of it's because like it was hard to find other work, and that was like a thing that you had to resort to. And so it made sense for her to be like a first generation immigrant. And as we were like settling with that idea, we kind of also came across in the research how like boxing at that time became like a huge English nationalism thing that was like connecting England's boxing like champions with England's military might, which was also like becoming huge at that time. And so we thought it would just be like a very interesting angle to explore what it would be like if you are English born, but you look like you're not from England and you're trying to be the English champion, and how that affects the journey.
Which comes to the subject that it's a 21st century subject of, you know, racism in itself, as she tries to find work and she can't.
Yeah. We saw like how if you're not white, it was very hard to like be taken in as an apprentice for like most trades. And when we were like trying to figure out like what other jobs would you have, like it was just kind of like it's either like servant or like driving around sedans. Yeah, gig economy. That's another thing that hasn't changed.
Yeah, and that was honestly one of the appeals of the story, that she was half Indian, and that she had to encounter all these problems, this racism back then, because of the color of her skin, and she didn't look like everyone else. And I think that just adds another layer to the story that everyone, Tarun and Kelly, explored beautifully in the book.
And nothing that we researched says she wasn't. So probably it's a liberty, but no one knows for sure.
Yeah, there's no pictures of her even. So I don't know, we kind of took that whole and ran with it.
What's actually pretty awesome is the fact that you didn't just use Elizabeth as a character in the comics. You also brought in Figgs and other fighters that were also, I guess, according to the Wikipedia page, they're real people.
Yeah.
How much liberties did you took with those other characters too?
Some, probably less, especially with Figg. Figg's probably, there are sources that say Elizabeth was probably more famous in the day, but Figg was more enduring. He's the one that history has kind of held up. There's an actual drawing of him. We know what his business card looked like, or his calling card would have looked like. So, and we know that he was this incredible fighter, undefeated, like hundreds, right? Something like 200 something.
Yeah, 200 something wins.
Okay. An astonishing fighter, and he did open his own boxing facility. So we don't know if he was what his personality was like in terms of. We certainly made that part up, but we know that he and Elizabeth were fighting at the same time, and it seems very likely they would have. We think that we probably took less liberties with him.
And then some of the other we used like the names of other fighters that were in like those newspaper ads that you'd see, and so we had names, and we just had like this record of like 10 years in Elizabeth's life where she was doing these fights, and so we tried to like stick to what those said, but like personalities and all that was kind of just us coming up with the narrative to fit those little historical bits together.
I think the story is awesome. Could you guys talk about the decision of making this? I don't want to say black and white, but it was like lots of grayscale, throughout the entire film with basically the thoughts in colors. Could you talk about the decision of doing something like that? I think Nikita probably could answer that one best, right?
Yeah. When I first heard the pitch, for some reason, this is what I saw the book in, and I thought it would be a cool thing to do. Honestly, this is our first foray into historical fiction. This is our first foray into young adult graphic novels, and I just thought it would help the book stand out. And I pitched the idea to Tarun and Kelly, and they seemed to be on board. And bringing in Amanda, her art just sort of really fit the story really well.
Yeah.
Amanda, because of the color schemes was in this direction, did it make your art easier?
Easier? You'd think. Not really. I think when you work with color, it's just different. You have different, like you can use color to emphasize certain things, whereas like when you're working black and white, you have to think about like the contrast and the tone and stuff like that, which is something that you also get to use when you use color. But when you strip color off that, then you have less to work with, and you think like it's less, I guess, you don't have as many options. So in that sense, it could be easier, but also that kind of restriction made it so that, okay, like certain scenes, if I want to like, have a certain mood or whatever with the lighting, like I have to take into account the fact that, well, they only used like candles and stuff. They didn't have like, like lampposts and stuff like that, like light switch, whatever. But also like if you want dramatic lighting, then like you have to find ways to like amp that up as well, right? But I mean, it was really fun, I think. And like when we were doing the cover, I actually wanted to stick with the black and white. Like I think we kind of danced around the idea of making the cover, just like full color. But I just thought that, just having that and kind of having that sort of consistency throughout the book would like really sell that idea of like, this is a historical kind of fiction thing. So yeah, I thought it worked. It wasn't easy, but it was different, I would say, than what I'm used to.
Yeah, there's a lot of dramatic character scenes in the book, and we had quite a few conversations about lighting during those scenes and just making sure that it told a story. And Amanda's acting in terms of the character expressions, it just works really well. And in terms of the cover, I love the splash of red for the blood on the cover. I think it just turned out really well, and it makes Elizabeth look really badass. So it's awesome.
Since since I'm always curious about, you know, the artist's secrets, Amanda, how did you actually manage to get all those facial punches, sketches? Do you practice, you know, punching yourself in the face in front of a mirror to get all? I mean, I have no idea how many frames of facial punches and body punches you created in that.
Yeah, I think I was really confident at first and I knew how to draw a punch or someone being punched in the face until I realized that I really didn't. Like it was definitely a lot of that, just kind of like looking at myself, seeing like, okay, where does the punch go? What do you usually you hit with this part, right? So I think there are some panels in the beginning where I definitely like was not completely like adhering to that, I guess. And yeah, it was just a lot of like I remember a point where like we kind of shared like videos of actual boxers like in action, and I up until the very end I would turn on my webcam and just like go like just like kind of like take a picture and see like how the face gets squished and all of that, and how to also like amp that up in a way, like how to hyperbolize the whole thing as well, because you do want to, I mean, especially in the last fight, which was my favorite chapter, where there's a lot of fighting and yeah, I really we all kind of agreed that we wanted all the gestures to be like really strong and really I don't really know the word, but you know, kind of like bigger than they might be in real life, just to get that energy across. So yeah, I definitely, there was a lot of me punching myself, not really, but looking like it, poses and stuff. I think Kelly one day like actually had to like stand there like to tell me what like she wanted for the panel, and I was just like kind of trying to like commit it to memory. So yeah, but it kind of became sort of intuitive at one point. It was like, okay, I already know how to draw this in a way in this angle. So that gave me time to sort of you know, look at the other things that needed time and needed like some more attention. So yeah.
Excellent. Now, story wise, Tarun and Kelly, the one thing that that I liked about is that you expanded the relationship with Liz with the sister and on a possible love interest with the boxer trainer. Could you talk about that, because it read like a young adult novel, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, we have our tropes that we love, and I mean, we're big fans of like the enemies to lovers trope, and so we knew from the historical record that Elizabeth did partner fights with this guy, and that he eventually like she fought in Figg's theater, and then she fought in this guy's theater later, and so we kind of took that as our historical record and just kind of added this I don't know, them butting heads in the beginning and having to work together and see each other's perspective. And that's, I don't know, that's just kind of what we just like always go towards that angle. Like that's our fun, like rom-com angle. Yeah.
And then we're also only children, but we're like kind of obsessed with sisters. We realized we didn't really mean to, but in our first trilogy that we wrote together, the sister relationship is one of the most important aspects of it. And we just did the same thing again. Less, a little different, hopefully, but we just think there's something really powerful about family, and we really loved getting to, you know, we think it's a huge impetus for why people do what they do, and so that was really fun to get to have another sister relationship.
And that's something I would like to weigh in on as well, because I mean, I also read it kind of as a fan, even though I was working on it, and like that is the kind of like star of the whole story. It's like you have their romantic relationship, which unfolds very naturally, but also like it doesn't, you don't feel like it's taking away from the main relationship, which is like Elizabeth's relationship with Tess. So like it was really well balanced, and like you don't really see that a lot. I think there's a lot of emphasis on like their romantic relationship in a lot of media, like we all know this, right? But like this just felt very natural, didn't take away from the story, just really added to it. And I think like that was something that I really enjoyed when I was going back through it. Yeah.
Not to nitpick, but there was a scene where she's going through training and there was a countdown towards her fight, and you folks literally did the countdown day by day, and I was thinking to myself, going, can they actually have enough material to count for 20 days? And you guys pulled it off. Was that difficult to do to come up with the script for all 20 days of training?
I think it was much harder than we thought because we love a montage, and that's how we imagined it. We're like, it'll just be a montage, and then we're like, oh right, you need to write a montage in a book, and it's just it's definitely different than we expected it. We thought it was going to be the easiest part, and I think it was one of the hardest ones. But
yeah, I think we listed out all the dates, and then we're like trying to figure out like what would the logical thing for her to be doing here, like how do you show her improvement. And then the other unexpected hard thing was like how to squeeze a scene into one page, because we just had to fit this into one chapter. And so we're like, how do you show her learning to do this move when we have just like a few panels? And
I think we actually cut out a lot. I think we had way more that we were trying to squeeze in, because if you want it to feel natural, you don't want it to feel like she got better overnight, and also their understanding grew as humans overnight. It has to be gradual. You have to see them butt heads and start to see each other's point of view. You have to see her starting to see, figure out some new moves and what she might have been doing wrong, since she's been training alone for a very long time. So yeah, I think that might be my favorite part, actually.
Well, I loved it because when I was reading it, I thought I was watching a movie with the montage thing. It goes with, I guess every boxing story has to have some kind of montage training thing, right?
Gotta have a montage, yeah. What would be a boxing movie without a montage? So no, that definitely was the inspiration. We love boxing movies. So yeah, if only real training would go that easily. Both Tarun and I have done a little boxing, and it's not as quick as the movies would make you think.
Excellent. And Nikita, since this is the first venture into, historical fiction, will we see Legendary go more towards us if these projects come their way?
Yeah, this is definitely a genre that I definitely want to play more in. I will say this is the first book that is being released under our new young adult line, so Legendary Comics YA. So we have a whole slate of young adult books, and we're just really excited to go more into this space. And what we really want to do overall is just tell character-driven, cool stories that really haven't been told before. And this is absolutely a great story to launch that new initiative.
Excellent. And for each of you, do you have a favorite section of this comic? I know it's divided into, what was it, like 5 or 6 sections. So, I mean, personally, I love the training part. So,
yeah, I said, I think that's mine.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but I love the last chapter. We had how that was going to be planned out to a certain degree, like when we first came up with the pitch, and we're like, this is how we want the final fight to be. And yeah, it was great that we got to keep it like that. And
yeah, I agree. That was also my favorite, the last chapter. Specifically, there's a part where she really struggles and has to pick herself back up, and that to me was like, that was like, I think it peaked there. That was when I felt the most.
Yeah, for me, I love the Tess and Elizabeth relationship, and I love that it's the core of the story. And there's this one moment in the middle of the book, I try not to get into spoilers, but it's a very intense scene between the two of them, and you can see the love that they have for each other, but also just everything that they've experienced just comes to the surface, their past and everything. And I love that it all built to that moment, and seeing where it goes from there. It's super exciting.
I think that's same. I can't choose.
Excellent. Well, let me wrap everything up with one more question for all of you, because obviously we're talking virtually right now, and we're probably all over the world at this point. But for the past 12 to 13 months, how are you staying sane and creative during this time? Who wants to start?
Long pause.
What if we aren't
Question.
either?
I mean, to be honest, for me personally, like whenever I have a writing project, I become like a hermit who doesn't leave my house anyway. And so I think it's having like just a project that you're focusing on, that you're doing research on, and then like watching movies to like inspire you with that. And I don't know, it's just kind of having that focus that has kept me sane. And so now that we're done with Championess, just trying to work on new projects, and hopefully you'll see that soon.
Anybody else? Kelly?
I definitely don't know that I could say I've kept sane, but I think I started working on like maybe the fluffiest story I've ever written, and like the most just like romancy, tropey, ridiculous story. And I don't know if it'll ever go anywhere, but I think just doing something that's like pure fun and historical, so I don't have to like try and deal with like, are we going to set something modern right now? I have no interest. I can't. So I'm stuffing myself back in the past and writing something very silly. And I think it's been helpful.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's similarly. I think actually being done working on this kind of put me in a place where I was like, what the hell do I do now? But yeah, I think this whole situation really made me look at my own kind of like mental health and seek out like, people I love and the people who like would be there for me. And also kind of similarly also put me in this place where I just wanted to make the most self-indulgent stuff I could like make, because I just kind of need that right now. So I think it's been at least a learning experience, but I encourage everybody to just kind of listen to themselves and what they want to make. Yeah.
Excellent. Nikita, you have the last word.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm lucky enough in my day-to-day job to be creative all the time and work on stories. So that's been great. But just to stay sane, I've been doing a lot of yoga and meditating. So that's my key to the past year.
I know my editor always tells me, he says, there's no such thing are great writers, just great editors. I don't know why he keeps on telling me that, but but they always keep busy, that's for sure. Well, once again, everyone, congratulations for Championess. It is a thrilling read from first page to the last page, and I really hope that you guys come up with more, because this is great. Too bad there can't be a sequel, but or maybe, we don't know.
Yeah. We can fill in a sequel.
Excellent. Next time, all right?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye now.